you caught last week's video, you know I ended with circles, the last sheet of which became something different as I kept experimenting and left a circle behind, and it inspired me to try something new for collage paper number 12, which kicks off this week's video. I started with one of the light colored pages from day one that had some nice wrinkles in it, but gave it some more by rolling it gently, because the wrinkles are integral to this collage paper technique. Healthy spritz of water as usual, and then I started dropping in watered down acrylic in blue to create these lovely rivulets that I let do their own thing. I have to say, this was a very relaxing way to spend time creating collage paper. I love the watercolor effect, and although it is sped up for this video, because it may get kind of boring to watch, and we have 6 more collage papers to get to today. This is a great one to get into flow, to let your mind quiet and shut off all the other distracting, overwhelming thoughts. It's a great one to just give your mind and body and soul some rest. Lately, I have been using palette paper to set my gel plates on because I have some on hand and I'm not using it for much else right now. It is, however, a little slippery. I have my 8x10 and 5x7 gel plates, Liquitex Basics Mars Black Fluid Acrylic, quinacridone magenta, cadmium yellow deep hue, and this cute little Liquitex Basics bronze. I'll be using my medium-sized brayer and rubber bands. I have 3 sheets of wet strength tissue paper for this 3-in-1 collage paper. I realized pretty quickly that I had put on too much black paint, but I failed to fully appreciate just how much too much black paint. I thought it was really interesting to come across this process after making collage papers 6 and 7, my black and transparent ones, because the 2 bonus sheets in this look very much like them and are a different way to accomplish them. In this case, using rubber bands as a mask instead of removing paint from the plate with the color shaper. I placed the rubber bands on the wet paint and used a sheet of wet strength tissue paper to pick some of the black paint up. This is where I first started thinking that wet strength tissue paper might not be my best choice, but it was hard to tell because, well, there was so much, too much black paint. So when removing the rubber bands, it looked like attempt number 1 was a dud because I had used so much black paint. But it also looked interesting, so I wanted to see what I could do with it. I used a sheet of regular tissue paper to remove some more of the still excess paint, and I apologize for my extra crazy frizzy curls getting in the shot. So this tissue paper is looking really cool as a black and transparent option, but what's left on the plate? Yeah, that definitely has a lot of promise. I lifted even more paint from the wettest spots and decided to use bronze and Liquitex gloss medium for a lustrous background. I started with the small gel plate because it seemed drier than the large one, and I had gotten too much paint again, so I started putting some of it on the large plate, which, yes, fortunately, did require more paint than I could carry over from the small one. Cardstock, and skipping the earthquake of making sure it's sufficiently adhered. Pull number 1 of the 5x7 plate I hate when I don't notice lines I've left in the paint from the edge of the brayer. Pull number 2 of the 8x10 plate. These two are not at all what I was intending, but they are pretty interesting and can definitely be used as collage paper, either as a background or cut up in a larger composition. It has been fun getting into metallics, which is another thing I have to thank Foil Davies for. But if I want the look I was going for, I'm definitely going to have to try that again. Collage paper number 14, a second try of the multi-layer gel print I saw on YouTube and did not get right for number 13. But yes, though it may not have been anything like what I set out to do, it still had some fun results. Less fluid acrylic this time, but I'm sticking with the fluid acrylic because that is the blackest black I have. My tube acrylic is ivory black. They don't have a Mars black in that. Put the rubber bands back down as I did before. I think this may work better with wider rubber bands, but these are what I have. Tissue paper for what should be bonus collage paper number 1. Picking up black paint and pull. And this looks rather familiar, rather like collage paper number 6, my first black and transparent. And here would be another way to do it. But that's not all for today. Removing the rubber bands, and they came out way more defined than I expected them to, and with more of the center lines taken out, which is definitely a different look than I was going for. It's pretty cool, just not what I wanted today. Everything has dried, and I'm adding some cadmium yellow deep hue and quinacridone magenta because I would like to recreate day 10 color where I demonstrated how to use the modeling paste and pulled some more of my awesome wrinkles. Brayer it out. I was trying to go for less blotchy. I don't like it when there are blobs in it with well-defined edges, though I'm getting this a bit too blended. And yeah, I don't know what I was thinking to grab another piece of wet strength tissue paper, especially since it was obvious that I'd used too much paint again. I also put too many wrinkles in it, and I can feel that there is way too much paint. But pull. Yep, this should have left some well-defined clear areas on the plate. With so much paint left, I decided after playing around with some things on the small plate to take off some more on the large plate. Again, I don't know what I was thinking to use the wet strength tissue paper. And I knew I was putting in way too many small wrinkles to accomplish what I was originally trying to do, but I guess I thought maybe I could do something new with it this way. So the second of the papers that was supposed to be the bonus paper number 2 in this process isn't so great either. But with everything dry, I will try to pull it again with a background with a sheen instead of the opaque of the original video inspiration. I probably should have thought that with as few white spots as I could see that a lot of it wouldn't show through, but I did think it would give it more of a glow than it did. Yes, again I ended up with something that turned out completely different than where I thought I was going. I'm not loving it. The circles are just, I don't find it fits very well with my aesthetic, I guess you could say. But I did learn, and it is interesting, and there is definitely more to explore with the way the color came out and with using things like rubber bands as masks. I did this final pull on cardstock, by the way. And the pull layer, which is also the background, is gold, bronze, and gloss medium. Definitely some interesting texture in that vibrant color. Welcome to collage paper number 15, my first ever gel plate magazine image transfer, with a high contrast image from a Town & Country magazine discarded from my library, and Liquitex Basics Payne's Gray. Trying out my larger brayer, and I'm kind of liking it. The trick is to get enough paint without getting too much paint. As you have been watching this video, you know that my typical problem is too much paint, but I was pretty sure that was going to work all right. Time to carefully place the image face down on the plate and make sure that it is fully touching everywhere. Yes, I speeded that up, and since it wasn't acting like a complete earthquake, left it in. I couldn't quite decide how to get it off the plate the best way because I had not left a corner on an edge. But this came out so well. I was so excited. And I decided to do the pull on tissue paper, which requires no waiting for anything to dry. As soon as you have the image, apply your tissue paper. In this case, I did use wet strength tissue paper because I had heard earlier in the day that it is ideal for this type of image transfer. And I would have to say I agree. With as much as I've struggled with wet strength tissue paper, this came out so well. Another high contrast image for Collage paper 16, Payne's Gray for the image transfer. It's one of my favorites. Brayer it out. Payne's Gray is almost a navy blue. It often reads more blue than gray. Carefully apply the image face down on the wet paint. Despite my difficulties you have witnessed with not getting too much paint on my gel plate, at least for these first two ever of my image transfers, I have gotten just the right amount, not too much, not too little. And here we have another gorgeous pull, though I would have preferred to not have the streak from the edge of the brayer. This one will need to dry because I will be adding a layer of paint that will become its background and will be used to pull the transferred image from the gel plate. I did decide to get rid of the excess paint around the image. I started with a baby wipe and then decided it might be better to just pull the extra paint, and that worked pretty well. This is some wet strength tissue paper. After everything was dry, I decided to first lay down a layer of Liquitex Basics copper to give it some shine. It didn't brayer out as smoothly as I would have liked, and things may not have been as dry as I thought. As you can see how the copper has sort of adhered to the dark places, and I probably should have added more if I wanted it to show more. Liquitex Basics Brilliant Yellow Green, not a typical color choice for me, and Phthalo Blue, which is, I do have the big brayer out again this time, and I did end up blending this a little more than I had intended because I hate hard edges in something like this. And I do have to say that the color created by mixing that green and this blue is gorgeous. This one will be another sturdy pull on cardstock, making sure it is well adhered and getting a rather gorgeous bonus paper by killing two birds with one stone, as they say, cleaning off my brayer and applying more pressure. And pull time. As expected, there weren't as clearly defined areas of color, but that's okay. And look at how gorgeous this color is. I was a little concerned it may be too dark, especially through the face area, but I still love it. Collage paper number 17 is another experiment, this time with lace from a hand-me-down dress that had lost its usefulness as clothing. I will be doing the most basic type of print you can do with texture for... That's probably too much paint. Collage paper number 17 with a follow-up with a little more complexity tomorrow. For collage paper 18, paint on 8x10 gel plate. I went with Liquitex Basics light pink. And I will be doing this pull on tissue paper, and I picked up something on my brayer, which is leaving marks in my paint. Ugh. There might have been some lint on that lace. Layer is down. Take lace. Try to get it on straight. Press it down, and I stuck my finger through the mesh. All right, I did squinch that a little, but let's see how it came out. Could have been better. As I said, this is going to be the most basic type of pull. As with the image transfer, while everything is wet, apply the tissue paper, which I did not get down as smoothly as is ideal. But let's see how it came out. This, of course, will be difficult to see with the transparent background, translucent background. That's looking pretty cool. Grab something darker so you can get a better idea of the transparence, translucence. So yeah, this one came out pretty well. It'll be another interesting one with the translucence where it will look like the design is floating on the collage or in one of the layers. And number 18 will take it a step beyond. Just a simple apply the paint, apply the lace, and pull it with tissue paper. Collage paper number 18, which is also lace experiment number 2. 8x10 gel plate, lace from yesterday, and I'm going with black for the lace. Not too much. Lay the lace. Flatten it down. And yeah, it did wiggle it a little again. And I'm creating an earthquake again. Well, let's see. Oh dear. Definitely have some messed up areas up here. However, I will go ahead and let this dry and give it a pull. That just sounded weird. Things are dry, and I think I'll use some more of the brilliant yellow green. Of course, this is the area that's not going to be very lacy. I think I'll add a little bit of the blue, but very little, because Yeah, a little bit of this goes a long way, despite its relative transparency and some silver shine. We're just gonna mix it all together and see how it goes. I'm going to use the medium brayer. I'd like to say because I want to play with it again, but the reality is I neglected to see the glob of black paint I left on my wide one, and well, it has a big rough spot that I need to deal with, and I may have gotten too much paint. Shocker, I know. But it should have some interesting variation. I'm afraid that blue is going to be really blobby there in the middle, though. No hard edges and no dark color. So, yeah, instead I'm ending up with something that's less variegated than I would have liked. Not necessarily always getting the results I'd like. All right, cardstock pull. This color isn't quite what I had in mind. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to use some regular tissue paper and pull off some of this excess. I should have wrinkled it up first. Wasn't thinking. Whoa. That's still pretty cool. But yes, I was right. There's really harsh edges there. Oh, really harsh line. Really harsh. Yeah, that's... But at least I see that I'm going to have some more variation than it looked like from the top. But again, I'm still afraid I have a little too much paint. So there is a bearish area. Okay, we're gonna have to call that good. And cardstock. Multi-level. And a not as interesting roll-off. Yeah. What I've learned so far from this one is fluid acrylic is not ideal. I thought maybe the lace would be better able to absorb more of it to make a more defined print. And this isn't ideal lace either. It's very stretchy. All right, let's see. Nope, we're not quite dry enough yet. So yeah, I'll restart the camera shortly. All right, let's see what we have. Yeah, there's the blobby blue I was trying to avoid. And the silver all ended up kind of concentrated. Although there's more sheen to it. But yes, I should have placed the paint differently. But it's still pretty cool. And it gives you an idea of what can be done. The lace is not as defined as I would have liked. And some of the areas where it's relatively well defined, the paint is, as I was afraid, too dark. I will definitely work on improving this technique. And the interesting thing with the gel plate is, no matter how much you've done, you can never predict exactly what it will look like. And it won't always come out exactly as you'd like. And that's okay. Okay, friends, let me know what you think of this week's paper. And as well as the 2 image transfers I did this week, these 2 gorgeous image transfers I love and were my first 2 ever, I also did a 3rd. She's very shiny. Let me know if you would like me to share a short on the making of this one. And be inspired to make your own